Welcome back to another Hog Hoops report with the one, the only Kevin McPherson and Courtney Mims. You get me for another week, Kevin, so I hope you're okay with that. We got a lot of basketball to talk about, though, so we're going to jump right on into it. The biggest thing that went on this week, fans got a chance to see this team in action for the first time. If you got to go over to Barnhill Arena, you were lucky on Wednesday night because you got to see a bit of a show. The red team winning over the white team. They actually came back because they were down in that first part of it, 11-2, and then they clawed their way back into it. But the red team did win 88-70 over the white team. Some big performers for the red team. Joseph Pinion, 20 points. Man, he was knocking down threes like nobody's business. You had L. Ellis, who contributed as well, 16 points and 6 assists. You also had Chandler Lawson with a double-double. But we have to shout out some guys on the white team, too. And Jeremiah Davenport, he did really well for the white team, 19 points. All of those coming in the first half. And then you also had Bayfall and Mekhi Mitchell contributing 13 points each. Kevin, those are the stats that I have, but I know you got a lot more analysis coming for us. What'd you think of the red-white game?
Well, I thought it was, it was high energy. I thought the fan energy was really good, 5,500. Musk kind of bristled at that. He thought it was closer to 6,000. Musk, the glass is half full. And there's certain things sometimes with him, the glass is half empty when you hear him talk about it. And really, the only negative I heard from him about this game is he thought the transition defense, some of it defensively, could have been better. But for a program that's been their bread and butter, and for 2 consecutive seasons, the 3-point shooting has been ranked in Division I in the 300s. And to see both of these teams combine 14 of 28 from 3, 7 different Hogs hit triples. And so you had 50% shooting from 3, multitude of guys hitting them. And of course, media got to go and be part of that practice a week earlier for a portion of it, 45 minutes. We got to see a lot of 5-on-5 live scrimmaging. And that's when we first noticed Jeremiah Davenport and Joseph Pinion going back and forth in those 3-point dagger, mano a mano type of thing. And we saw that in the first half of the red-white game. I mean, Davenport scored all 19 of his points. That 11-2 lead that the white jumped out to, by the way, those were all his points. And he was 3 of 4 from 3 at that juncture. And then Pinion with 17 first-half points, hit all 3 of his threes in the first half. And so both of those guys kind of continued that. They're sort of the poster children, Batman and Robin, you pick which one, for the 3-point shooting for this team so far from what we've seen. And so I think that's always a good sign. And the other guys stepped up. Some of the players on Arkansas's front line hit threes, including true freshman Bayfall, the 6'11" center. But so you saw Arkansas, you're starting to see now how Arkansas is addressing some of those issues. And I think this will be a better free throw shooting team too. Although collectively these teams were right around 70%, not much better, or, similar to last year where they were at just over 69%. But I think this will be a better 3-point shooting as we free throw shooting team as we move forward. But some of the other takeaways, you mentioned some of the stats. I thought L. Ellis with his 16 points, 6 assists, ultra efficient. 8 of 10 from the field shooting. When I watched his game, very steady player. And when you're watching him making reads on when to pass and when to look for his shot, sometimes a couple of plays broke down and he went and got a bucket. You need a guy like that. You need a guy like that, especially in crunch time, especially if you're going to say that you're taking another step, a step up this season with identifying some areas where you want to be better. A guy like that helps you. This is his 5th season in college basketball. 8 of 10 from the floor. Again, the 6 assists. He led Louisville in scoring and assists last year. He could be a guy where he could have a combo like that at Arkansas. I'm not predicting him to be the leading scorer, but he might be in the top 3 or so when everything shakes out. We need to see. It's a brief sample size. But I thought you might mention Chandler Lawson's double-double. Love his length and versatility. He's a 50-50 ball warrior. He's smart, savvy, understands his role, doesn't try to do things that aren't in his wheelhouse. That's how you win possessions. Guys understanding who they are, how they fit, and he's acclimated really quickly because he didn't join the team once he committed in late June, Courtney, until they got back after that break, after summer workouts, and got back in late August. That's when he started practicing. So I think he's a guy now that's sort of not only knocking on the door, but he may very well be putting his stamp on a top 8 rotation piece. And I think, again, when I look at other guys, I like what I saw from true freshman Blocker. Tremont Mark didn't have his best offensive game, but he's kind of a jack of many trades type of guy. Love his length. I think he's got a big billing as an elite defender coming in. There were some things I noticed, but I think it's just about the system, him getting more comfortable. And I think he can still improve defensively the way Arkansas plays. And then Devo Davis would even bring him up, double figure scoring, 3 assists, but 2 of 3 from three. He continues after not being a very good 3-point shooter or decision making with his 3-point game. When we go back and look at his first 2 seasons, I thought last year he obviously got better there. Decision making on when and which ones to take, how to do it. And I think he continues to progress there. 2 of 3 from three. You'll take that all the time, every time from Devo Davis. And I thought that combo of Davis and Ellis was a big reason why the Red surged out and got up by as many as 20 before winning by 18 after being tied up at halftime.
Absolutely. I love that recap there. And I liked a lot of different things that you said in it. But we talked a lot about that offense. And you said when we started that Musselman wasn't so happy with the defense. He made a joke. He was like, I don't know who our defensive coordinator is, but he has got a lot of work to do come next week. Talk a little bit about where they need to be better. You said defense in transition. Where else on the defensive side do they need to kind of work on before they get into exhibition season?
Yeah. Well, Arkansas, my Muss says it all the time. He coins it this way: we're a no middle team. And it just means they try to funnel guys to each side, to each wing, and not get drives or action working into the middle. Because when you get to the middle, it makes a defense even more vulnerable because you can pick and choose to flare back out to wings, set up, spot up shooters, or attack getting downhill. And so you cut off a lot of the court if you can force them one way or the other. And I think Arkansas still has some collective lateral movement challenges when you look at some guys. And so when you can't cut off and wall off initial parts of drives, and guys are going to choose to go middle if they can get there first. And so I think that's part of it. The transition defense, I think some of that because they want to run more and you're playing hogs versus hogs. You don't like that you didn't do as well to transition defense, but you loved it that your transition offense got out and got some finishes. Some of that was, from the perimeter. Arkansas was not a good 3-point shooting team. We've talked about that. But when it comes to transition, sometimes that secondary break where defenders are getting back, but they're not quite set. I thought Arkansas was a little bit slow defensively on those secondary breaks where there's one quick pass, then a second pass to an open guy of getting a closeout and making a challenge. I thought that was part of the problem there. But again, you're bringing it, you're shuffling in a lot of guys 1 through 13 in a game like this. And so you really don't get a true picture of how a rotation might fit together because you're going to shrink down who's on the floor in games that matter. They'll get better defensively. This has been a program the last 3 years when we talk about back-to-back Sweet 16s and then back-to-back Elite Eights as part of that 3 and 2 years ago. Top 10 nationally defense, number 11 in year 2, the second Elite Eight. Last year slipped a little bit, 16, 17, somewhere in there, KenPom.com, efficiency defense ratings in Division One. So a guy like Musselman knows that's what comes first. And so when you see some of those problem areas that he saw in this game, and even just though it's just a red-white game, those will be areas I guarantee you with these exhibition games coming up in a nice 2-week cushion between red and white and the first exhibition game. They work on a lot of that stuff on that defensive side of the ball, Courtney.
Absolutely. And I sure hope they do. I mean, Musselman, again, is one of his biggest critics. So, I mean, you're going to hear him say he didn't like things when the fans are going, wait, but there was so much good in that game. There were so many positives to take away from it. So, but you can't hate that. That is why he is such a great coach. Kevin, we need to talk about this. A couple injuries to mention. Trevin Brazil, of course, didn't play in this game, but we kind of knew that. Musselman said, hey, 2.5 weeks is what we're looking at him to do live scrimmaging again, 5-on-5. But we also noticed another injury. Khalif Battle was in the pregame warmups. He went to the locker room. He came back out with a boot and crutches. I mean, that was kind of a shocker to a lot of the media members there going, wait, what happened? Can you give us an update on both of those guys?
Yeah, Brazil's on pace. Now, Musselman is hedging a little bit. When he told us in that Thursday practice basically a week before the red-white game, that he was 2.5 weeks out, well, I start looking at the schedule. I know that means he's not going to red-white. He's not red-whiting. If he's 2.5 weeks away from just doing live 5-on-5 in practice, he's not going to red-white. He did some warm-ups. He went through the pregame stuff, but he's been doing some practicing, including 3-on-3 live and full contact, but it's a little different. And so you also look at the schedule and go, wait a minute, October 20th comes up pretty fast against Texas Tyler. I know we're going to talk about that here in a second. My thought is he may not be playing in that game. Maybe he does, but just before that game is when he's supposed to get back for 5-on-5 live. And I just wonder, are they going to risk him in a game like that? It doesn't count to begin with. And the other part is you've got a plan, stick to it. So you may not just want to rush him out there, but they might do something, you know, start him and play him, until the first time out, or bring him off the bench and play, or they might just keep the bubble wrap on. We'll see what they do. Musselman said what's key is that he's ready, and they're on track for him to be ready for the season opener on November 6th against Alcorn State at home. Sandwiched in between that and the other game is that Purdue game. I know we're going to talk exhibition a little bit. That's another game to keep an eye on as a potential Brazil return. And then you mentioned Battle. This guy, I mean, he played 27 games last year at Temple, led that team in scoring, nearly 18 points a game. Only 7 games the prior season because of that foot, the same foot. And when he started out, great, those first 7 games, over 20 points per game, crazy percentages from three. When you combine those 7 with the last year's 27 games, which was a career high amount of games he played, it's 34 games. You combine them, he shot nearly 38, over 37% from three, nearly 3 makes per game, and he can score at all 3 levels. So this is a guy I have projected in Arkansas starting lineup, if not probably, possibly, but definitely a top 8 rotation guy if he's healthy. But that changes dynamics because this guy before last year, 3 seasons, 1 at Butler, 2 at Temple after transferring, a combined 42 games in 3 seasons for various injuries and things. So you keep an eye on that, because what is the best ability in any sport is availability. And so this guy brings a world of talent and the potential to be Arkansas's leading scorer, but he's got to be healthy. He's got to be on the court. The more time you miss, sometimes the harder it is to come back. Now, we'll have an update. I do have an update. Musselman talked about in the post red white game that they had done some initial x-rays. Those were negative. They were taking looks at it. They were going to do more the following day. I've been told since then that there's nothing serious there. They don't see anything serious there
Oh,
after further evaluation. So we'll see how long it takes for him, though, to be able to go. These are things that are touch and go. A lot of times you don't have to have a chronic or a diagnosed injury to have problematic stuff that just keeps nagging. And if you can't go on it, you can't go on it. So we just need to see how that plays out, because that's going to impact Musselman's rotation for sure. They didn't bring Cliff Battle in to be battling for a 9 or 10 spot. He was coming in to battle for a starting spot, top 6 or 7 rotation. And so that affects guys on the perimeter, especially guys like Jeremiah Davenport and Joseph Pinion, even though they're not exactly the same positionally and don't bring exactly the same things. They are backcourt 1 through 3 players, and they've already shown some firepower in the 2 times we've seen them so early so far.
absolutely. And it all affects that too. I mean, you make a great point though, Kevin. You got to watch, monitor what the injury is, because even if it's not so serious, it can turn into something more serious if they rush him back out there on it. If they rush him back out there, if they're not careful with it. So we'd rather them be careful with him through this exhibition time, rather than, hey, we'll throw him out there against UT Tyler or Purdue. If that's not the case, same with Trevin Brazil. I'd rather them be cautious with him, get him back on track, and then get him out there when he's healthy. I think fans can agree with me on that one. You don't want things turning into something much more worse. Speaking of UT Tyler and Purdue, those 2 exhibition games coming up in 2 weeks, they get a nice little break to prepare, work on some of those things we talked about in practice, and then get out there and test it out against some other competition that's not themselves. Kevin, how do you feel about these 2 games? We talked a little bit last week about UT Tyler and Purdue, what you want to see from the team in these games. What do you see from these opponents? What are these 2 teams going to challenge the Razorbacks with?
Well, Division II exhibition games have not been just cakewalks for Arkansas. I think 2 or 3 years ago, the D2 team out of Oklahoma came in and Arkansas had to scratch out a win at the end. And that one went to the wire. The other thing, though, really is now you're playing other competitions. So you want to see, you think what some of the returnees bring to the table. You want to see some of these newcomers. You also start to see now that everybody's together on one team. Do we in the Division II game really start to get a sense of maybe what a rotation looks like right now? If Trevor Brazil's on the court and Cliff Ballard not on the court, you still got question marks of what the true rotation might be if those guys were available. But I think you might start to see an idea of rotation early in that game, or maybe stages of that game. Certainly, if it's close, late, Musselman may have to dial it down to 5 or 6 guys he trusts at this point. So I'm always looking to see what can I learn about rotation and how guys fit. Not just on the who he puts out there, but how do they play together? What is Musselman still figuring out? Because he doesn't have it all figured out yet. It's still October, and he's seen these guys every day, but still, he's got to see them play against other teams. We'll all be doing that. So I'm looking at that. Can they continue the 3-point shooting? Does the defense show me more now that they settle on, fewer guys maybe playing most of the minutes? And if you blow a team out and you've got it rolling downhill, you might just rest some of your top guys and make sure guys who aren't going to play as much are in there getting minutes. You just never know how it unfolds. But that starts with that D2 game. And then really when I'm looking at going beyond that for Purdue, it's just like the Texas game last year when Arkansas went on the road for an exhibition game. You're talking about a team that's that's arguably the best Big Ten program right now in basketball, and this is a team that's going to have top 5 national, top 10 projections preseason. They already do in some of them. So you want to win, but you also want to learn more about your team, and it doesn't count. It doesn't count on your regular season record. You got a tough non-conference coming up anyway. This adds to it, but it gives you a preview of what Arkansas might do against a high caliber opponent. And you're trying to win that game. Charity exhibition at Bud Walton. What an opportunity. By the way, fans that are upset about no TV or live stream for Red White or for Texas Tyler, you're going to get SEC Plus, the SEC Network Plus for that Purdue game. So that's a nice treat for an
That's
exhibition
huge.
game. That's a big, come on, take your wins. But,
I'd rather see that game, honestly.
Right, huh?
I'd rather see that game. I keep telling fans, I go, you pick your battles, right? If they can't do a stream for the Red White, at least they're showing you Purdue. I mean,
right, that's right. So there's a game that I think you learn a lot more about your team. Certainly, I think Musselman for that game is going to have a rotation figured out. Again, where are Brazile? Where is Battle? Does anything else happen between now and then? We don't want to jinx anything. But this is a program that last year can hang its hat, its 8 and 10th play finish in SEC play, regardless of all the talent. They had 2 key injuries. Right now that we got 2 guys that aren't playing relative to one, an injury a year ago that took him out of the rest of that season, but still not fully back. And then Battle, we don't know yet. So these things are important against Purdue. We'll see what the rotation is. We'll see who's available. But, you want to win that game. Doesn't count against your net. Doesn't count against your regular season record. But it helps you get better because you really get to size yourself up against quality, top shelf competition before it ever counts.
Absolutely. And we got to kind of run through this because volleyball starts at 3:00 for us and we're filming this in the afternoon. So Kevin, really quickly, recruiting news, big news this week with the commit of Isaiah. That was huge. I mean, I love seeing his video that he put out on social media. Musselman with what was he bowling? Yeah, they were all bowling.
They were bowling strikes. They were bowling strikes.
I love those videos. Talk about Isaiah for a quick second. Yeah, talk about Isaiah for a quick second, and then also talk about really quickly some of the other Hogs that maybe, or some of the other Arkansas recruits that may commit very soon.
Yeah, so you had Isaiah Elohim, 6'5" wing, Sierra Kenyatta, California, strong, sturdy, athletic. So he's a guy that plays a good game of bully ball with skill, left or right, gets into defenders, can finish at the rim, nice pull-up mid-range game from both left and right sides of the lane and the wings. Kind of an emerging, opportunistic three-point shooter on catch and shoot. Really like his game, national top 35 guy. Bookend him right now with Jalen Shelley, the 6'8" combo forward from Link Academy, who committed, as we know, a few weeks ago to Arkansas. So this may be a 2 or 3 player class. They've got 2 now. It could end here. Trey Johnson, the 5-star class of 2024, 6'6" guard from the Dallas-Fort Worth area at Link Academy, has an official visit set up for October 20th. The same day that Arkansas has that first Division I exhibition game against D2 Texas Tyler. And then the football Hogs will be back home finally against Mississippi State on Saturday, where he'll get to see the game atmosphere and fan atmosphere at a football game while he's on campus. So that's really it for recruiting right now, other than class of 2026, Aiden Chronister, Arkansas offer. I got to see him practice on Wednesday before. He was at the Red White game where I was covering it. And then Isaiah Seeley, class of 2025 out of Springdale, another Hog offer who was at that Red White game. Both of these guys have Hog offers. Both are national top 30 to 50 players in their classes. I like both of them a lot, Courtney.
Well, I love that. We'll go into a little bit more recruiting news next week when we do our update as well for people who are like, wait, that was so fast. We'll get some more of that next week. But I do want to give some time to this because this is very important. And I know you have been doing a great job on social media updating us on the Pro Hogs. There are 3 of them over in Israel right now, where war broke out just recently, just a couple of days ago. And so you have been kind of getting the updates on these guys who are over there. You have, just so I'm correct on these 3, Dusty Hannahs, Justin Smith, and Jalen Tate are the 3 guys who are over there right now. You just updated us that Dusty Hannahs has evacuated and he is safe and in Greece. So that is great news. For those who don't know, what are the updates on those other 2 guys?
Not really any updates as far as new information that changes what we reported yesterday, that they're safe. So, I also reported yesterday that it wasn't only Dusty at the time who was unable to evacuate. Later, much later, hours and hours later, Dusty got back with me and said, I'm now evacuated safely. I'm in Athens. The other guys, at that time I reported, there were also other Pro Hogs who were unable to immediately evacuate. So I don't have any progress or update on that, but I don't have any negative news to report either. And so I think all 3 Pro Hogs, let's leave it at this, as we report this now, are safe. And of course, Hannah's being out of the country and in Greece, that's one evacuation that I can report. And obviously this impacts a lot of players overseas, wherever they are. I mentioned that Daryl Macon, I didn't report this, last year played in Russia professionally. Well, there's Russia and the Ukraine have been in war, and we saw Brittany Griner, what she went through, given that long prison sentence before, and being in prison before a prisoner swap. We always want these Pro Hogs to do well, pursue their careers if they have to play overseas. But when things like this happen, we always want to report on their status, their well-being, because it can be dangerous out there. Anytime there's a war, you know what they say, there's, everything's at risk, and that's everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or what. When rockets are crashing down, there's over 2,000 reported just yesterday in Israel. Everybody's in jeopardy. So you always want to find out if these people that we care about are close to, how they're doing.
Absolutely, Kevin. And we appreciate you for updating us on those guys who are over there. And it's so nice to hear that they are safe. And I know Hog fans as well were watching your updates closely because they were like, thank you so much for updating us on their status, because some of them were worried about them as well. I mean, our thoughts go out to everyone over there right now who are dealing with that crisis. And it's so glad to hear that those guys are safe. I'm sure if you get any more updates, you will update on your social media, right, Kevin, on Twitter at AR Hoop Scoop?
Yeah. Yep, that's right.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much. And Kevin, that's going to do it for this week's Hog Hoops Report. We'll see you next week for another update. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Courtney.